The rain outside was pounding like fists against the windows, but inside the house, everything was eerily still. I stood in the hallway, barely breathing, my backpack pressed to my side like a lifeline. My fingers trembled as I reached for the front door handle. I thought I could make it out unnoticed. I really thought I had timed it right. But then, her voice pierced through the silence. Cold, measured, cruel. If you're going to end it, at least be useful and do it far away from home. Jade said from the stairs, her arms folded, a smile dancing at the corners of her mouth. Behind her, my mother burst into laughter, as if Jade had just delivered the punchline of a stand-up routine. My stomach dropped. I froze, caught between the desperate urge to bolt and the terror of what might follow if I moved too fast. I didn't answer. I couldn't. You really thought you could sneak away? My mother sneered as she slowly descended the staircase, her voice laced with contempt. You think we wouldn't notice? I backed up instinctively, gripping the straps of my bag tighter. I was just getting some air, I whispered, hating how my voice cracked. With a packed bag? Jade laughed, coming down behind our mother. Her dark eyes glinted, her tone playful but menacing. Where were you going, sis? Off to finally do what we all know you've been thinking about for years? I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. My legs felt rooted to the floor. This was not the first time she had said something like that. And it wasn't the first time my mother had laughed. But something about tonight felt different. Heavier. Like they were daring me to react. Like they wanted me to. You're so dramatic, Jade continued, stepping closer until her face was inches from mine. You make everything about you. All Mom ever asked was that you stay. She gave you everything, and this is how you repay her? With tears and secrets and escape plans? I tried not to flinch. I kept my eyes focused on the door, just behind her. Freedom was so close I could taste it. You're pathetic, she said, her voice low now, dripping with disgust. Honestly, you'd be doing us a favor. Nobody wants you here. Nobody will miss you. Not your ex, not your friends, and definitely not us. And then, with a quick flick of her fingers, she snapped them against my forehead. I stumbled slightly. My heart thundered. My fists clenched. She laughed again. Oops, she said, mockingly. Didn't see you standing there. Behind her, my mother shook her head with exaggerated disappointment. You'll never make it out there, she said, walking away like the conversation bored her. You're going nowhere. I stood there, shaking. The rain outside still thundering like the world itself was screaming with me. I didn't cry. I couldn't afford to. I couldn't give them that. Not tonight. Not ever again. I took a deep breath. I was going to leave. I didn't know how yet. But I knew with every fiber of my being that this house, this cruelty, this cycle, was not going to swallow me whole, not tonight. My name is Natalie Monroe. I am 27 years old and 3 months away from graduating medical school. Most people, when they hear that, imagine someone confident, proud, maybe even privileged. I am none of those things. I work weekends at a local bookstore to pay for my textbooks. I live in a house that drains the soul out of me every single day. And I have learned to smile through pain so convincingly that even my professors think I have it all together. I don't. I haven't for a long time. I live in a weather-beaten 2-story house in the outskirts of Eugene, Oregon, the kind of place where the trees sway like old ghosts and everything smells like damp earth. Inside the house, things are colder than outside. The walls carry decades of silent screams and muffled cries. My mother rules over it like a monarch of misery, while my younger sister Jade plays her perfect little shadow, her apprentice in cruelty. I used to believe I could endure anything if I just worked hard enough. I used to think that being quiet, helpful, and invisible would keep the peace. But people like my mother don't love peace. They feed on control, and Jade learned early that being cruel gets you attention, power, and worst of all, applause. My father died when I was 16. Stroke, quick and merciless. He was the only person who ever made me feel safe. His death left a hole in me and turned my mother into someone I barely recognized. She started calling me weak, ungrateful, selfish. She said I reminded her of my father too much. Then came the punishments, the silent treatments, the threats. When Jade and I were kids, she used to cry when I did. Now she laughs. She started getting mean around 14 and never stopped. The smarter I got, the more she tore me down. The more distance I tried to build, the more she tried to erase me. I used to have a boyfriend. We met in undergrad, and for a while, I thought I had found my way out. He broke up with me when Jade sent him edited screenshots of messages I never wrote, implying I was cheating. My mother congratulated her for protecting the family name. I never dated again. I study in the library until they close. I come home and go straight to my room. I keep my earbuds in even when there's no music playing. At dinner, I say as little as possible. I wear the same gray hoodie 5 days a week and never take off my shoes in the house. Not because I forget, but because I never want to feel like I belong here. I have a scar above my left eyebrow from the last time my mother lost her temper. She called it an accident. The doctor wrote it off as clumsiness. I told myself it was a warning. Every morning I stare at that scar in the mirror and remind myself, this isn't where I'm meant to stay. I am not them. I am not their echo. I am not their punching bag. I just have to survive long enough to break free. I have kept my head down for years, thinking it would protect me. But all it did was make me easier to hit. And now, finally, I understand. The only way to survive this is to leave. Not slowly, not politely. Quiet won't save me. I have to disappear before they erase me completely. It started with a conversation. That's how most of the terrible things in my life begin. I came home early that day, earlier than usual, with my heart pounding and my throat dry. I had rehearsed it for weeks, rewritten every sentence a dozen times in my head. But nothing could prepare me for how it actually unfolded. I told my mother I had received a conditional internship placement at a hospital out of state. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. She didn't even blink. So you're abandoning your family, she said flatly, as though I'd told her I was leaving to join a cult. I tried to stay calm. It's part of my degree. Everyone in my year is doing it. It's mandatory. Her eyes narrowed. You think I care about your little plans? This is your home. You don't get to walk away just because you're scared of responsibility. Before I could reply, Jade stepped into the room, holding her phone. What's going on? She asked, already smirking. Your sister thinks she's too good for us, Mom answered, her voice rising. She wants to run away, leave us behind. That was all Jade needed. She didn't argue. She didn't ask for an explanation. She simply turned her back, walked a few steps away, then pulled out her phone and sent me a message. Seconds later, I felt my phone buzz. I looked down and read every word with growing numbness. You dumb freak. I hate you. You're trash. I'm glad you were assaulted. No one loves you. No one ever will. You're selfish, pathetic, and you ruin everything you touch. Just do it already. End it. Make everyone's life better. My hands began shaking. I could barely breathe. I didn't even notice the tears streaming down my cheeks until my mother walked past me and burst out laughing. God, you're so sensitive, she scoffed. She's just joking. You always take things too far. But it wasn't a joke. Jade's messages kept coming, line after line of venom, reminding me that my boyfriend had left, that no one cared about me, that if I disappeared, no one would notice. Then came the message that stopped my heart. You know what? I hope it happens again. But this time, I hope no one finds you. I hope they throw you in a ditch where you belong. When I looked up, Jade was there again, standing in front of me. Her face was a mask of concern, but her eyes glinted with cruelty. Oh no, did I hurt your feelings? She asked, mockingly. You don't have any, remember? Then she leaned in, her breath hot against my ear. You should really do everyone a favor and disappear. And then she flicked the back of my head with 2 fingers, hard. I stumbled forward slightly. She laughed. Oops, sorry, didn't see you standing there. I didn't react. I couldn't. I was frozen inside. I just stood there as my mother walked past again, murmuring, You're not going anywhere. That night, I went to my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of my bed staring at the blank wall. My heart was racing. I was too numb to cry. Too exhausted to panic. That was the night everything inside me broke. That was the night I stopped hoping they would change. I opened my phone and began taking screenshots. Every message, every insult. I created a hidden folder, backed it up to a private email account. Then I opened another folder and started collecting old messages from Jade. I had ignored them for years, but now they were pieces of a puzzle I needed to complete. Next, I made a list. Clothes, laptop, identification, savings. I had about $300 hidden in a book, a gift from a friend 2 birthdays ago. I began packing quietly, one shirt at a time. I rolled my clothes to save space, placed my laptop in a towel to muffle the sound. I put my charger and cash in the side pocket of my backpack. I even added a small photo of my father from my wallet. He was smiling in that photo. I needed to believe I could smile again, too. I was halfway through when I heard footsteps. My blood ran cold. The doorknob rattled. "Open this door," my mother's voice commanded. I hesitated. Then, forcing my heartbeat to slow, I unlocked it. She pushed it open and saw the bag on my bed. Her eyes flared. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed. I forced a smile. "Just packing a few things for next week," I lied. "For the internship." She stepped into the room, her face inches from mine. "You're not going anywhere. You think you're smart? You think you're better than us?" "No," I said quickly. "I'm not going. I promise. I'll stay." She stared at me, eyes hard. Then she stepped back and nodded slowly. "That's right. You belong here. Don't forget it." She slammed the door as she left. I waited until her footsteps faded. Then I resumed packing. I wasn't staying. I was getting out, even if it meant escaping through the window. I was done pretending, done being silent. I didn't know where I'd go yet, but I knew I couldn't survive one more night here. The night I chose to leave, the sky outside was ink black and windless. I waited until the entire house fell silent, listening for the rhythm of my mother's breathing through the thin walls. Waiting for Jade's footsteps to stop pacing upstairs. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my mind. I moved quietly, sliding the zipper of my backpack shut with exaggerated care, then slipping on my worn sneakers. I didn't bother turning on the light. I had memorized every creaky board in that house. I held my breath as I turned the knob and pulled the door open, inch by inch, praying it wouldn't squeak. When it didn't, I stepped out, heart pounding like a war drum. Each step down the hallway was a silent war between dread and determination. I passed the family photo that still hung on the wall, all of us smiling like we were a picture-perfect home. I didn't dare look too long. I reached the front door. Freedom was a single lock away. My fingers were just about to turn it when a light flicked on behind me. "Where do you think you're going?" My mother's voice sliced through the dark like a blade. I froze. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. "Just for a walk," I murmured. "It's late," she snapped. "With your bag?" I stayed silent. Her footsteps moved closer. I could feel the tension rise with each step. Then, with no warning, she snatched the bag from my shoulder and hurled it onto the floor, unzipping it and tearing through everything. She pulled out the cash and waved it like a flag. "You really thought you were going to run away with this?" she spat. "After everything I've done for you?" I wasn't running, I lied, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I was just preparing for the internship." She laughed, not a real laugh, a hollow, twisted sound that bounced off the walls. "Do you think I'm stupid? You're trying to leave, just like your father tried to leave before he dropped dead. You're just like him, ungrateful, weak." She stepped forward, eyes blazing. Her hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with bruising force. "You don't get to leave. You don't get to abandon this family." "I wasn't going to," I said, barely above a whisper. "I swear, you were packing lies in that bag," she said coldly. "You were walking out that door to shame me. And I won't allow it." I felt the pressure on my wrist tighten. Then she shoved me backward, not hard enough to fall but just enough to remind me of who was in control. "You think you're brave now?" she whispered. "You think packing some clothes makes you strong? You're not strong. You're scared, just like you've always been." I looked at her, forcing the tears not to fall, forcing myself to show nothing. I knew she fed off the fear. She stared at me for a long time, trying to peel me open with her eyes. Then she let go of my arm, stepped back, and sneered. "You belong here, with us, because no one else will ever take you." She turned around and stormed off, tossing the cash onto the floor like garbage. Jade came out of her room just in time to watch it all. She gave me a slow, mocking clap. "Nice try," she whispered. "Maybe next time, bring more than pocket change." Then she disappeared into the dark again. I stood there in silence. My body was still, my breathing shallow. The door was still right in front of me. But in that moment, it felt farther away than ever. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my room with my back against the door, the bag beside me torn open and my thoughts spiraling like a storm. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Jade's voice whispering her poison. Every time I inhaled, I smelled my mother's perfume, sweet and cloying, like decay under sugar. But somewhere in the swirl of despair, something hardened inside me. I wasn't going to beg anymore. I wasn't going to explain myself. I had to be smarter. I had to be quiet in a way that was calculated, not submissive. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my messages until I found one name I had almost forgotten: Monica. We had met during a first-year college course and kept sporadic contact over the years. She was now in her second year at law school. I typed and deleted the message to her 6 times before finally pressing send. "Are you still offering help if I need to leave my house? I'm ready now. I have evidence." She replied within minutes. "Yes, I meant it. Tell me everything. Right now." I started from the beginning. The messages, the screaming, the emotional abuse. Monica didn't ask for pity. She asked for details. She gave me a list of things to document, names I should remember, organizations I could contact. She also gave me a number to a shelter she had worked with in a legal support capacity. "They know your type of case. They don't just take battered women. They take broken ones, too." Her words hit me like a flood. For the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt seen. That night, while the rest of the house slept, I copied every screenshot from my hidden folder onto a flash drive. I wrote a short note and taped it under the drawer in my mother's room. It wasn't for her. It was for the police, in case something happened to me. Then I waited. 2 days passed. I played the role. I cooked dinner. I nodded when my mother ranted about how ungrateful I was. I sat still while Jade recited her twisted versions of events to anyone who would listen. I stayed quiet because I needed to. I had to get out without setting off alarms. On the third night, at 2:12 a.m., I slipped out of bed fully dressed. I had everything packed in a grocery tote and a second-hand duffel bag I found in the garage. I didn't go for the front door this time. I cracked my window open and used the garden bench to climb down, scraping my palm on the gutter but not stopping. I landed on the grass with a thud that echoed louder in my mind than it did in the real world. I didn't look back. I didn't allow myself to. I walked 4 blocks to the diner where the shelter van said they'd pick me up. I kept my eyes down the entire time. The driver, a woman in her 50s named Carmen, didn't ask questions. She offered me a warm drink and handed me a blanket. She looked me in the eye and said softly, "You did the hard part. Now we help." I collapsed into tears, but not the broken kind. The kind that come when you realize the worst might be over. The shelter was tucked between a church and a small clinic. A modest brick building that glowed under a single street lamp. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and detergent. The hallway was quiet. The staff walked softly. No one raised their voice. For the first time in years, I didn't have to flinch at silence. Carmen showed me to a small room with a twin bed and a locked cabinet. I closed the door and sat on the mattress, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. I was free, but more than that, I had acted. I had made the choice. I wasn't rescued. I wasn't lucky. I saved myself. The first morning I woke up at the shelter, I didn't recognize the silence. It wasn't sharp or threatening. It was soft, like cotton. The bed wasn't comfortable, but I didn't care. No one was yelling. No one was outside my door, waiting to pounce. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath without fear curling in my chest. The shelter was basic but safe. That's all I needed. My room had a twin bed, a metal desk, and a narrow window that overlooked a tiny patch of grass. 7 other women stayed there, all with different stories but the same haunted look in their eyes. We didn't ask questions. We just existed together, quietly. Some smiled. Some stayed in their rooms. We took turns cooking. We shared detergent. We handed each other tissues without needing to speak. The staff were kind, firm, and fiercely protective. They gave me a list of steps: apply for emergency assistance, get a doctor's note, update my ID, start therapy. It felt overwhelming at first. Like a second life I hadn't earned. But each day, I checked something off. One of the staff, named Brenda, told me gently, "This place is only 30 days. But if you use it right, it's a beginning, not a deadline." On day 4, I landed a job interview at a local urgent care clinic. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough. I went in wearing borrowed clothes from the shelter's donation closet and makeup one of the other women helped me apply. The manager, a woman in her late 30s, didn't blink when I said I was currently at a shelter. She nodded and said, "Sometimes, surviving hell makes you stronger than any resume." She hired me on the spot. I cried in the bathroom afterward. But again, it wasn't the kind of crying that breaks you. It was the kind that cleans you. That week, I called Monica again. She was thrilled I had gotten out. She told me she had already spoken to a counselor about filing a restraining order. "You have enough evidence," she said. "You don't need to just run. You can make sure they never come near you again." I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I was still afraid of how loud their rage could get. But the idea that I had options, that I could choose to fight back, that idea planted itself in me like a seed. The shelter became a temporary family. One of the older women, Teresa, taught me how to stretch $20 into a week's worth of meals. Another woman gave me a handmade bracelet and said, "You wear this when you forget how far you've come." I wore it every day. Day 29 came faster than I expected. I had nowhere permanent to go, but my friend Monica helped me find a shared rental. Just a room, barely furnished, with a quiet truck driver who was never home. It wasn't ideal, but it was mine. I moved in with a folding cot, a borrowed blanket, and a small box of essentials. The first night I slept there, I left the door open. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I didn't want to feel locked in again. I started school again the next semester. Not at my original university. I didn't want them to know where I was. I wrote a new application essay about surviving emotional abuse and reclaiming self-worth. I was accepted, granted aid, and told that my story had inspired the panel. It shocked me. I had spent so long hiding. I never thought the very thing I was ashamed of could be the reason I got a second chance. It has been 3 years. Some days it still feels like I only just escaped. Other days, like I was never there at all. The final piece fell into place a few months ago when I walked across the stage in a cap and gown, my name echoing across the auditorium. I was 29, older than most of my classmates, but I felt no shame. I felt whole. I felt free. My fiancé waited for me at the bottom of the stairs, tears in his eyes. He held out his arms and whispered, "You did it. You made it through." His family was there too, holding signs and clapping like I was theirs. Because I am. They don't share my blood. But they gave me something my family never could: safety. His mother checks on me when I cough. His sisters text me just to say they love me. And when I got food poisoning last month, he drove out at 2 a.m. to get electrolyte drinks and stayed up with me until I could sleep. No shouting, no judgment, no threats, just care. It still surprises me. Sometimes, when he does something kind, I catch myself saying, "You don't have to." He always answers, "But I want to." And I'm learning how to believe that. I still go to therapy. I still wake up from dreams where I'm trapped in that house. But now, I write about it. I talk about it. I stopped hiding. 2 months ago, I gave a talk at a community center about domestic emotional abuse. I didn't name names. I didn't point fingers. But I told the truth. I talked about what it means to be unloved by the people who were supposed to protect you. I talked about what it feels like to be told to vanish, and how choosing to live is an act of defiance. After the talk, a young girl came up to me, barely 18, with trembling hands. "I think my sister hates me," she whispered. "My mom says it's just teasing, but it doesn't feel like teasing." I held her hands and said, "If it hurts, it counts. If it crushes your spirit, it's not a joke." That moment made everything worth it. Monica, my friend, my lifeline, filed the legal paperwork on my behalf months ago. We submitted the screenshots, the messages, the photos. My mother and sister were investigated for harassment, threats, and psychological endangerment. Nothing happened right away, but I wasn't waiting for revenge. I was protecting my future. And that felt more powerful than punishment. When I got the call that a restraining order had been approved, I was walking home from the clinic. I paused on the sidewalk and closed my eyes. It was done. They couldn't touch me anymore. I had finally drawn a boundary they couldn't cross. Today, I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment with a shelf of books, a window full of plants, and a basket where I keep letters from women I've helped through shelter referrals and clinic conversations. I light a candle each time one of them texts me to say, "I made it out." I've built routines that honor who I am. I buy myself fresh flowers every Sunday, a ritual my therapist encouraged. I take days off and don't answer my phone. I let myself nap without guilt. I write letters to the version of me who thought life would never get better. And I tell her, "You were wrong, but I understand why." I do not hate my mother or my sister. I do not wish them pain. I just don't carry their wounds anymore. I choose softness now. I choose distance. I choose peace. Family is not who raises you. Family is who sees your scars and chooses to love you anyway. And I am my own family now. I am not who they said I would be. I am not broken. I am not nothing. I am a survivor. I am free.